So, for my last experiential activity, I thought I would do a video recording of a needs assessment PowerPoint that I created for Virginia Tech Veterinary School. So, the needs assessment I did for the veterinary social work program at Virginia Tech, and there is an aspect of the veterinary social work program there that I wasn't involved in. There's another intern who focuses on grief and bereavement and dealing with clients. So the needs assessment was limited to what I was involved in, which was the intentional well-being support, supporting students and interns and residents. So this needs assessment I did, but I had Augusta, my supervisor, look it over, and she's going to keep it and potentially present it to her superiors or supervisors, and it might help to value or prove the value of the work that we're doing, and certainly the work that she's doing, and also point out aspects that need some improvement. So again, the purpose of the needs assessment was to identify places that we were doing well, to identify gaps in the service that we are providing, and to make recommendations for improvement of the veterinary social work program at Virginia Tech. The focus of the assessment, again, was on students and house officers and did not account for client services, which was a part of the social work program that was taken care of by the other intern and by Augusta. The way that I collected data was by two surveys. One was done by the rotating interns. So those are veterinarians who have just graduated, and right after graduation, they do a year where they rotate through the specialties. And then a second survey I did was of the fourth year students that I supported. So some of the things that came out of the survey data, there were some aspects of satisfaction that were assessed. 100% of the house officers that participated in the survey felt supported by the veterinary social work team and believed that having a veterinary social work team was valuable. Of the students that were surveyed, let me go back. I skipped something, sorry. Again, this is on satisfaction of the students that were surveyed. A large majority, 83%, were satisfied or very satisfied with their experience. And most, 75%, were repeat, I use the term customers, but basically were repeat users of our services, using our services 3 or more times throughout the year. So that was interesting and meaningful to us to understand that a lot of people that we interacted with found it valuable and came back and had continued interactions with us. From a utilization standpoint, this will show up as one of the gaps that we identified. Only 23% of the students surveyed actually accessed veterinary social work services. So there was a lot of students that did not utilize any of the veterinary social work services. And that was compared with 100% of the house officers that participated in the survey. Of all of the house officers that participated in the survey, they all used our services. And I do know there's a smaller number of interns and I think there was only one or two of them that didn't use veterinary social work services, but those people didn't participate in the survey. Again, another aspect of utilization that came out in the data was that 50% of the students that responded utilized our services for mental health supports versus 25% of students utilized the veterinary social work services for case debriefs. So this is a breakdown of, you can see the graph, and it showed that the majority was for mental health services, and then there was a 25% for case debriefs, and then the 25% was for other things, and that was not specified. And then another thing that came out in terms of utilization was that the house officers felt that grief and bereavement support was the most important part of the veterinary social work services. So, just looking at that difference, it really highlights more of what house officers are doing versus students. How house officers are seeing appointments themselves, leading the appointments, taking emergency cases, and really dealing with euthanasia, with poor outcomes of cases, and the grief and bereavement support is really important to them in their role. Another question that I asked the students was what trainings that they would like to see more of. And this graph, you can see, shows what their answers were, and you can kind of see the graph yourself there. But what was interesting was that the highest portion of students, which was the 27% portion, were interested in more training in neuroregulation and anxiety management, which I found really interesting. And then I also found it very surprising that a large portion, and that was 18%, were interested in public speaking training, which I kind of threw in there, not thinking many people would say that they were interested in it. But in my experience as a veterinarian, I think being comfortable with public speaking is really important. And I was happy to see that students identified as that as being important. These were some of the quotes of what the students actually said, and I really love these quotes, and I hope Augusta shares these with her supervisors, her boss, because I thought some of the things they said about her was lovely, that she's very easy to talk to and always a friendly face, that they appreciated her walking around on the NAVLE, that's the board exam day and match day, to be an on-the-ground resource. And then I loved the quote about me that I loved my mental health coaching by Allison. I think she's the best therapist I've ever had. That was really very affirming for me. So overall, I feel like these quotes that I included here just speak to the fact that Augusta and I were really approachable, and it seems like the students really felt comfortable accessing our services. So these are some of the places that students felt like we could improve, which is, important in a needs assessment. There were several different comments suggesting that students were not aware of the veterinary social work program. They weren't aware of it until like midway through the year. They didn't know exactly what services we provided, the extent of the services that we provided. So, there was a number of comments like, I wish I knew about this sooner. More people should know what you guys do. A bunch of comments about, not really being aware of the program. And then there was a comment about the wellness rounds that we provided, that they felt that there needed to be more kind of context or explanation about what wellness rounds were and their purpose. And there was also a comment that a student was interested in more support during challenging rotations, which we could only, because of Augusta explained, because of the department heads, she only had access to certain rotations for wellness rounds, which she's going to try to work on. But that was a place of feedback. House officers wanted more meetings off campus and more meetings with food. So it really speaks to the kind of their desire for connection and a space off, out of the hospital, off campus, like just more, I think just like more community connection is what I took away from that. So I think what the veterinary social work program at Virginia Tech is doing well is in culture and approachability. I think that students and house officers really feel comfortable accessing Augusta and me, that we were flexible and available, that we provided a diversity of services, mental health support, grief and bereavement, advocacy, and case debriefs. I think that we were really good at anticipating the needs of the students and house officers, and really great at taking action, taking feedback that they gave us and trying to help put that into change. Some of the gaps that were identified were, mostly the biggest thing was it seemed that students and possibly teachers and staff are not really aware of the veterinary social work program, don't really have a full understanding of what it is, what it can provide, and, how available we were. So really, I want to use the term advertising, and I don't think that that's the right term, but really just making everybody aware of what we are there to provide. And I think some of it has to do with this was Augusta's very first year, her one whole year. She'd been there, maybe 6 months before the start of this academic year. So I think it speaks to, her newness of being there and the newness of the program. And I think now that she's been there an entire year, more people are aware of what she does. And then I do think that we need to provide more opportunities for trainings and trainings outside of veterinary medicine, more professional trainings. So these are some of my recommendations. I think there should be more robust promotion of the veterinary social work program, beginning with first-year students and continuing and increasing as they get into clinics. And again, a little more awareness and integration between teachers and department heads, so that if a student goes to a teacher or a department head with a mental health issue or a support issue, they can refer those students to us. I also think that there should be more comprehensive integration of wellness rounds into all rotations. And again, because of the feedback of the house officers, more team building events that really don't have anything to do with being at school. Sometimes, just having that community support feels good. And then because of the what they commented about the trainings, these specific trainings I really would like to see integrated into the veterinary social work program. Training on neuroregulation and anxiety management, more experience discussing euthanasia with clients, like maybe role playing that, critical incident debriefing, training on crucial conversations, training on mediation and maybe role plays on mediation, and public speaking.